What if you were the living embodiment of all pervasive peace? What if all sentient beings all around you increased their vibration towards harmony by merely being in your contact? What if through conscious reasoning, focused will, and intentional living, you reform yourself, thereby becoming a catalyst and sparking transformation in others? I'm Shilpa Lewis, meditation and mindfulness coach for midlife mompreneurs, and you are listening to Omnipresent Awareness, the podcast that will inspire you to use your story to serve humanity in not just healing, but thriving as souls, each fulfilling their highest purpose. And now, a conversation recorded with my partner in awareness, Tanya, from our joint podcast, Mindful Mompreneur Moments. And oh yeah, if you could, please listen to the very end of the podcast for powerful insights from our guest. Thank you. Next up, Ashley Strong Smith. Since she was a little girl, Ashley had been enamored by the power of documenting moments in time. Photography was embedded in her soul. For years, photography was a side hustle, something that she did at nights and weekends after working what she called the responsible 9-to-5 jobs. It's only after the profound question came to her, am I really living or am I simply existing? And that changed everything. She immediately brought to life a lifelong dream of teaching and living in Africa. She taught English on Mafia Island, Tanzania, with World Teach, and there she fell in love with herself, life, and with a sensationally sincere South African man who she is now married to. She went on to get certified to teach around the world, which brought her to living and teaching in South Africa and Costa Rica, all the while letting her camera guide her heart and encapsulating all of the beauty she was witnessing. Upon returning to the United States with $700 and an old car to her name, she made the bold commitment to launch her photography business, Ashley Strong Photography. Little by little, her client base started to expand. Her commitment to creating an intentional business started to grow, and before she knew it, she was documenting weddings around the world, inspirational entrepreneurs in her hometown, families expanding, and every expression of love in between. In 2018, she incorporated as Strong Smith Incorporated, and since then, she's been humbled to expand every year. Ashley also launched Wings of a Flower Print Shop, an exclusive collection of prints from Costa Rica, South Africa, and Tanzania, and her mentoring and education program, all the while being a mama to her inspirational, unique, adventurous, and loving little girl. Today you can find her with her humble little family nestled in the mountains of Southern California, where she spends her time documenting sincere love in all forms, from engagements to weddings, pregnancies to birth, new businesses to celebrating monumental growth in everything in between. So without further ado, here's Ashley Strong Smith.
Thank you so much for being here, Ashley.
I'm so grateful to be here. Thank you.
Well, we are so excited to have you. So Ashley, without further ado, our first question is, how did you emerge into the role of being a mompreneur or arrive at becoming a mompreneur?
So there's the long version and there's the Spark Notes version. I think one of the biggest things to note was I had a major shift in my life in 2013. I was working at the local PBS station in Southern California, and I loved my job, but this voice kept repeating over and over again. Am I just existing, or am I actually living? Am I just existing, or am I actually living? And it wasn't going away. And I had studied African history in college, and I always knew I wanted to go and teach and live in Africa. And so immediately I applied for an organization called World Teach, where I then went and taught in Tanzania for that stint for 3 months. I met my now husband while I was in Tanzania. He is a South African, and he was there running a whale shark conservation camp. Fast forward, coming back to the United States, I didn't come back to the United States fully until 2015. And that was when I launched my photography business, Ashley Strong Photography. So I was literally living in the guest bedroom at my parents' house with like $700 to my name and a car that barely worked. And I would sit there all day long, and I would go through, it was called the Book of List. And it was like all the nonprofits in Orange County, and just reach out to people asking if they needed a photographer. And so my business started to grow. So did my relationship internationally. I would be here for 6 months, in South Africa for 3 months, here for 6 months, in South Africa for 3 months, while we were waiting for my then fiance's visa to get approved to come to the United States. Eventually in 2016, he was able to come after 3 years of applying for the fiance visa. And then we were so blessed with our daughter Orion. I got pregnant. When was she born? She was born in 2019. So I got pregnant in 2018. And on July 11th of 2019, she joined our world. So given that I was already an entrepreneur and a photographer, I then took on the new role of being a mom. And quite truthfully, when she first came into this world, I had a lot of difficulties mirroring this new role as a mother with this passion of an entrepreneur and a photographer. And I would say it took me till she was about 6 months to really embody this idea about being a mompreneur, a mom entrepreneur. And since then, I've embodied it and embraced it, and have just become so grateful to be able to live through the lens of not only being an entrepreneur and a photographer, but now my favorite and greatest role in this world of being a mother.
Wow, it's been quite the journey.
Yeah, beautiful journey. A beautiful journey. Yeah. And how did you come about becoming a photographer? And how do you integrate any mindfulness modalities?
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, personally or professionally.
Yeah. So I was the little girl that on the weekends, like, was in my bedroom scrapbooking while like everyone was playing outside. I was always obsessed with this idea of being able to slow down and document time. And it just
wow, that's a nice way of putting it. Yeah.
My first job in high school was at a scrapbooking store. I sold scrapbooking supplies and taught scrapbooking classes because I just thought I was just so connected with this idea of really preserving and being able to tell these stories. And so I'd always had, back when disposable cameras were a thing, I always had one of those, and I would go to Walmart and get my film developed. And then I graduated on from that. And for Christmas one year, I got like a little, I don't know, it was one of those battery operated cameras. And then for my college graduation present from my parents, they got me my first DSLR camera. And then from there, I really started to play with photography in a more professional light. I started taking photos from my travels and from my nature walks and selling them at the local art fair. And then it kind of just snowballed. I had gotten asked to photograph a little kid's like headshots for modeling. And then when I went to Tanzania, it really solidified how much more there was to myself that I was missing at that stage in my life. And I knew that photography was my vessel to be able to communicate and be in exchange in the world how I wanted to. And so it was always a hobby, or like a part-time job, I would say, through college and after college. But then once I came home from Tanzania, I was able to launch it full time. And since then, it's been my full-time endeavor.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Yeah. And the second part of the question, so I love that you asked that about like what mindfulness practices I use. And I think one of the biggest things that I've realized is being an entrepreneur and wanting and knowing that, like, I don't just want to be an entrepreneur. I want to be a very intentional and mindful entrepreneur in how I run my business. And so it's really created this space for me to work on myself that then in turn affects my business. And so I listen to a lot of podcasts. I read a lot of inspirational books. I used to have a very dedicated yoga practice, but that's shifted as my life has changed. Now I'm very into affirmations. I set mantras at the beginning of every week. I kind of have a ritual. I pull from a few different decks of tarot and oracle cards and really finding a foundation for the week. And then from there, I set my mantras and my goals for that week. And I live by one of my like greatest mantras that I live by is the only way out is through. And I was so grateful. My doula actually gave that to me while I was giving birth to my daughter, because it was a very long natural birth. And I wanted to give up a few times.
Oh, wow.
And
she documented it.
Yeah. Yeah. And
What's the name of the book again? Sorry.
Oh, it was from my doula. So my birth coach. So the mantra that she gave me was,
it was a mantra.
Yeah, is the only way out is through. And she just kept saying that to me the whole time I was in labor is, Ash, the only way out is through. And now it literally, every phase of life, it has become just like my guiding post of like, the only way out really is through.
Yeah, that is just, it's an incredible way of just verbalizing this notion of we live in it's not a comfort growth, it's like a learning. Everything you do, you're learning. And so when you have to go through it, no matter what it is, happy or sad, you go through it and you learn from it. That's she's a great doula.
Oh, she is one of my favorite people in this world. So yeah.
And you've been so courageous in documenting various aspects of your life. Tell us a little bit about your book and the title again, and what inspired it.
So the book is I mean, I have to be so humble in this process, as I was approached by one of my clients who has a book publishing company. And so what the book is, it's called In Her Shoes, Stronger Version of Me. And so it's actually a collaboration between myself. So it's 6 women total. Each of us have a chapter in this book. And the whole focus of it is a stronger version of you. And so asking she asked a few questions. It's like documentary format where you tell about yourself. And the biggest thing is talking about one of the biggest things that you have overcome in your life. And so it was the first time where I was really able to document and share my story of what I call jumping. I got it from Steve Harvey has this like really rad interlude that he did, and like just organically in between changing sets on his Family Feud show. And he talks all about jumping and how we just need to jump and take risk in this lifetime. And that sometimes we're going to be caught, sometimes we're going to fall and we're going to hit rocks. But either way, we've got to jump, because Tanya, just like you said, it's going to get us to where you're supposed to be, regardless of it, if it was positive or negative, good or bad. And so I really made the decision back in 2013 to what I called jump. And I made the commitment right then and there to turn my dream life into my real life. And so since then, I've been doing that every single day, and it's been my like guiding force. And so I documented the process of what that looked like, how I transitioned. And this was written back in 2017. So obviously the whole like part of becoming a mom isn't in there. But it really was my process of just trusting myself and taking that leap of faith and really listening to what I knew was within versus listening to the outside noise of what I thought I was supposed to do or should do. And so, yeah, it's really beautiful. So then 5 other women's stories are also in that book.
Yeah, that's amazing. I think that for our listeners, one of the things we really want to share with our listeners is the fact that we each have our story. And if we can grab a little bit from, from anyone around us that can show us a positive mindset, a positive way of going through things, it is golden. You have to be able to surround yourself with people like that. So for you to have a book where there's 6, you said?
Yeah, 6 of us.
Different women telling their story, that just must be so amazing. So thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, I'm so honored to have been a part of the process and to have collaborated with these other women, because we're all here to be inspired and to inspire.
Absolutely. So, and when it comes to business, I wanted to go back to what you were saying with the mindfulness. I think that also for our audience, I want to remind everybody that we're also doing this because we want you to be able to go out there and have a business where you're full of compassion, full of gratitude, and then you're able to see your client as a human and just be able to serve humanity. First starts with your client, but in the bigger picture is humanity. So yes, thank you also for the mindfulness that you shared.
Well, and I love that you just highlighted that, because the way that I run my business is my business is now like expanding into education, but its foundation is through photography. And one of my biggest things is like, by the time I'm in front of someone documenting them, I want to feel like I'm documenting my best friend.
Absolutely.
Because like being able to have that type of connection and that type of trust, it gives people this space to be fully themselves.
Oh, and that is so beautiful.
Yeah.
Just so beautiful. Yeah.
There's so much authenticity that you've always been bringing into all aspects. From the time I remember stories from years ago, whether it's through your Facebook, but just knowing you, there's this pure authenticity. One of the things I recall that you had documented was, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I remember describing anxiety in journaling. Almost like a morning pages stream of conscious, becoming aware of it. And tying that to your ability to rise above, almost like coaching yourself. And I believe you then ran a marathon. So maybe you can share something, because that really resonated with me when I read that.
Oh, thank you for remembering that and acknowledging it. It was a half marathon. Definitely don't
it still has the word marathon in there, so it's an accomplishment. Don't play it down.
One day I know I'll run a full marathon.
I know you will.
I just want to say thank you for that acknowledgement, because it has been very vulnerable putting myself out there the way that I have, but I have made a very conscious decision, and I've had conversations with my husband, obviously, because his life is influenced by it, and our daughters, of like, I want to be more public with these things. And I'm so blessed to be in a partnership and in a family that like fully embraces that. So thanks for the acknowledgement, because it's been a very like intentional thing.
Well, by bringing vulnerability into it, you allow other people to step into that same vulnerability.
Well, it reminds us that we're all human. We're all human going through this together. And sometimes, especially going through the pandemic and post-pandemic, it feels like we're so alone. So What you were referring to was I was actually having a series of anxiety attacks. It happened, I would say they started around December of 2020 and then really like took a height in January, February of 2021. My business, being in the wedding industry, came to a complete halt during the pandemic. My husband had just gone through a beautiful transformation, but he had gone through Fire Academy. So he's pretty much gone for 4 months. We had just come out of a lot of drastic transitions, and I was getting regular anxiety attacks, and sometimes they would just come and go, and I would like go pour myself a drink so I wouldn't have to think about it. But obviously that's not sustainable, and that's not where I like resonate. And so one Sunday we were all home, and I don't remember exactly what like caused the start of the anxiety attack, but I immediately told my husband and daughter, I've got to go into our room. And so I went into our room and I just free wrote, and I just started, like, I didn't stop myself, like you had said, like a stream of consciousness. Like I just started writing and writing and writing what was going on and where this was coming from. And one of the biggest things that I had realized in that moment is I was so depleted. I had been giving and giving. My daughter, I just finished breastfeeding, and then my husband goes into academy, and my business had come to a halt. So I was having to get super creative and like figuring out how we were going to keep surviving. And I was completely depleted, and it makes sense why my anxiety attacks were getting so bad. My cup was empty, and I wasn't filling it up in healthy ways. I was coping to like unhealthy mechanisms like drinking, which isn't something that I naturally gravitate towards. And so I started like asking myself, like, what do I need? And one of the two things that I always go back to ever since I was growing up in college is yoga and running. And so I was like, okay, what feels good at this moment? We're in a pandemic. I don't want to take yoga online. It doesn't resonate with me. So what I want to do with running. And I immediately started doing research, and I like it just, when you just get voices that tell you things, I just got the voice that said, run a half marathon, train for a half marathon. And so I literally made the decision on that February day that I would train for a half marathon. And so I spent the next week or so researching programs to see what is the healthiest way to do it, because I didn't just want to run a half marathon and kill my body. And so I spent the next 3 months training for the half marathon. I'd found this really cool program on Pinterest that I followed, and done a ton of research on like prepping my body and what to do for my body, like after I get done with my runs. And luckily my husband had just gone through firefighter training. And so he knew all these things to like help replenish my body.
Yeah, that's pretty intense.
Yeah, the body gets dehydrated, that's for sure. And so, yeah, in January, February, March, April, in April of this year, I ran my first half marathon in just over 2 hours. So
nice.
Yeah.
Wow, amazing.
It was really amazing.
You always manifest exactly what you say. Like, you're so true to the word, which is incredible. Like some of us, maybe myself, oh, that's a good idea.
You go out and you actually do it.
Yes.
I knew I think one of the biggest things, well, once I make my mind up, and I'm going to do it, but I also I have learned that I work really, really well when I'm working towards something.
Right.
And so I knew that in order to make this shift, I knew I needed to do something that I hadn't done before and that was a bit drastic. And that's exactly what I did. So
that's great. And as we're coming to the end of the interview, it's nice that you say it that way, because I feel like you're a wealth of insights that you can give people. You've already given us so much, including the ones that just pop into your head. That's amazing. But do you have any other insights that you could share with our audience?
I think one of the biggest things, and what I'm a huge advocate for, is all too often we say, oh, I wish I could do that. Or when I'm done doing this, I'll try to do that. And I think one of the things that I'm so blessed every single day is the knowing and reality and experience of turning a dream life into a reality continuously. And so I'm such an advocate for women, for mom entrepreneurs, for individuals to really get clear on what their dream is, regardless of what they think they should do or what society says that they should do, or whatever it is they feel that they have to do, like to really listen to what it is that is inside of them and turn that into a reality unapologetically. Because then you live in your truth. And I think the more that I have accepted what I want as my like life, like I live in my truth in a way that like betters this world, and I can like wholeheartedly say that I'm a better person, and in return I'm then making my community, my family, my community better. And I think if people really got the courage or tapped into the courage to live in their truth, this world would be a different place.
It would be a different place.
It would be a very different place.
Yeah, and thank God for you, for your daughter. She's watching you thrive like this, and it's just another little human that will go into the world and do good because she has an amazing mother.
What an amazing role model you are for her.
Yeah.
I thank you for saying that. I mean, you know, being a mom is one of the hardest things you do in this world, and not all moments are the like finest moments, but I'm so grateful for her presence every day, because she has given me even more oomph to want to live my dream life, because they literally are sponges.
They are our biggest teachers.
Oh yeah.
Biggest teachers. Absolutely.
Thank you so much for this, Ashley. You have been just a delight.
I'm so grateful. Thank you for sharing your story with Soul.
Yes, I can't wait for people to actually hear your story and follow you. We'll put all of the links in the description. So if anybody wants,
definitely, the book is so lovely, and we will share more about that book as well.
Absolutely. Thank you, Ash.
Thanks again for tuning in. Check out the links in the description, and please subscribe, follow, and share. And continue to be omnipresent.